My wife has one rule. Every single night, before she goes to bed, she checks every door and every window in the house. Not once, not twice, 3 times. I used to think it was just paranoia, until one night, something outside our front door started using my voice. My wife, Emily, has always had this strange bedtime ritual. Every night, before turning off the lights, she walks through the entire house, front door, back door, every window. Then she starts over and checks everything again, 3 times. I used to tease her about it. Do you really think a burglar is going to leave because you checked the locks 3 times? She'd smile without looking at me. That's not who I'm worried about. I'd laugh. Then who? She never answered. She'd just pull on the front door one last time, making sure it was locked. We've been married for 4 years. I've never seen her go to sleep without doing it. One night I finally asked, "Where did this come from?" She stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "When I was a kid, I woke up in the middle of the night and our front door was wide open. So someone forgot to lock it. That's what everyone told me the next morning." She looked down. "But I know it was locked before I went to bed." I shrugged. Maybe it was a dream. She nodded, but the expression on her face told me she didn't believe that. A few weeks later, I got home late from work, almost 11:30. Emily opened the door before I even knocked twice. Something was wrong. She looked pale. "Everything okay?" She hesitated. "This afternoon, someone knocked on the door. Did you answer?" She shook her head. "No." "Then what happened?" She stared at me. "It sounded exactly like you." My stomach tightened. "What?" He kept saying, "Emily, open the door." I laughed awkwardly. Probably somebody messing around. She slowly shook her head. "You were at work." I didn't know what to say after that. The next night, around 2 a.m., the doorbell rang. A few seconds later, again, ding, dong. I sat up in bed. Who would be here at this hour? Emily grabbed my arm hard. "Don't answer it." "I'll just see who's there." "No." I'd never heard fear in her voice like that before. Then, we both heard it, from outside the front door. My voice, clear as day. "Emily, open the door." Every hair on my arm stood up, because I was standing right beside her. The voice came again, "I'm home." I walked toward the door anyway, slowly. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. The porch was empty. No movement, no cars, no people. Then the voice whispered again, closer this time, almost against the other side of the door. "Please let me in." I stepped back immediately. Neither of us slept that night. It didn't stop. Every week, between 2 and 3 in the morning. First, the doorbell, then my voice. Sometimes Emily's voice. One night, we heard her crying outside, "Please, I'm locked out." I looked over. The real Emily was curled up beside me, shaking uncontrollably. I finally bought a motion-activated security camera. The next night, 2:07 a.m., the doorbell rang. We didn't move. The next morning, I opened the footage. At first, nothing. An empty porch. Then, someone slowly walked into frame. Same height as me, same clothes, same walk, same face. Mine. He stopped in front of the door, then looked directly into the camera, smiled. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. He never touched the doorbell. It rang on its own. Then he leaned toward the camera until his face filled the entire screen and whispered, "If I'm out here, who's inside?" The screen ended. right there. Emily and I moved out that same day. We never went back. 6 months passed. Life finally felt normal again. Then, one night, I woke up. The doorbell was ringing. Ding, dong. I walked to the front door, looked through the peephole. Nothing. No one. At that exact moment, my phone vibrated. A security alert from the camera at our old apartment. The same camera I was absolutely certain I'd taken with us. My hands started shaking. I opened the live feed. The apartment was dark, completely silent. Then, someone slowly stepped into view. It was me. He stared directly at the camera without blinking. His lips slowly moved. "Where have you been?" The screen suddenly went black, and at that exact moment, someone knocked very softly on our new front door. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. I never looked through the peephole again, because deep down, I already knew whatever had followed us was finally home.
If you ever hear someone whisper your name from above you when you're completely alone, don't look up, no matter how familiar the voice sounds, because sometimes the thing calling you already knows you're going to look. I wish someone had warned me before that night. I'm a utility inspector. Most of my work happens during the day, but every now and then, emergency calls come in after midnight. 3 years ago, during one of those storms that knocks out power across half the county, dispatch sent me to inspect an old railway tunnel just outside a town called Briar Creek. Apparently, motion sensors inside the tunnel had been triggering every few minutes. No trains had used those tracks in decades. The job sounded easy. Walk in, reset the equipment, leave. At least, that's what I thought. The rain had already stopped by the time I arrived. Everything was soaked. The air smelled like wet concrete and rust. The tunnel entrance looked like a mouth, waiting. The flashlight barely reached 20 feet ahead. Everything beyond that was swallowed by darkness. About 5 minutes inside, my radio started crackling. Not static, breathing. Slow, heavy breathing. Dispatch? Nothing. Only breathing. Then, a man's voice, soft, almost whispering, "Don't look up." I stopped walking. "Hello?" No answer. The radio went silent. I convinced myself it was interference, old tunnels, bad signal, nothing more. Then, I noticed footprints. Fresh footprints. Bare feet. Walking deeper into the tunnel. But something wasn't right. Every footprint had 6 toes. Curiosity got the better of me. I followed them. They suddenly stopped. Not turned around, not faded away. Stopped. As if whoever made them had vanished. Then I heard dripping water directly above me. Drip, drip, drip. I almost looked. Then I remembered the voice. "Don't look up." Instead, I pointed my flashlight toward the ceiling without raising my head. I wish I hadn't. The beam reflected off 2 pale eyes. Something was clinging upside down to the ceiling, perfectly still, watching me. It didn't move. Neither did I. Then, my flashlight flickered. For 1 second, everything went dark. When the light returned, the ceiling was empty. That's when footsteps echoed behind me. Bare feet, slow. 1 step, then another. I spun around. Nothing. The footsteps kept coming, closer, closer, but there was nobody there, only the sound. Then my radio turned on by itself. This time, it wasn't the same voice. It sounded exactly like my younger brother. The problem was, my brother had died 8 years earlier. "Matt," he whispered, "please look up." Every instinct in my body screamed not to, so I closed my eyes and started walking, fast. The whispers multiplied. Now there were dozens, some crying, some laughing, some begging. Every single one wanted me to look. I finally reached the maintenance room. The sensor panel was shattered, but that wasn't what caught my attention. Someone had written a message across the wall, using mud or maybe dried blood. It read, "It can't climb down unless you see it." My stomach dropped. The motion sensors weren't detecting people. They were detecting something crawling across the ceiling, right above anyone who entered, waiting for eye contact. Suddenly, something warm landed on my shoulder. Not water, a hand. Long, cold, with 6 fingers.
Ran, not because I saw it, because I felt it. Its fingers slid across the back of my neck. The whispers became screams. The tunnel echoed with voices all repeating the same sentence. "Look at me." I kept my eyes on the ground. The exit finally appeared ahead. Moonlight, fresh air. I burst outside and collapsed in the mud. When I looked back, the tunnel was empty, silent, like nothing had ever happened. The next morning, my supervisor reviewed the body camera footage. He called me into his office. He looked terrified. He asked only one question. "Why were you talking to yourself?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" He turned the monitor toward me. The video showed me walking through the tunnel, alone. No whispers, no footsteps, no voices. But every few seconds, I stopped, looked straight into the camera, and quietly repeated, "Don't look up," over and over and over again. Then the video reached the final minute. I was standing outside the tunnel, safe, so I remembered. But in the reflection of the puddle beneath my boots, someone was still hanging upside down, directly above me. The camera never pointed that high. It didn't need to, because the last frame froze on my reflection, and just before the recording ended, the reflection looked up. If I hadn't done one small thing that night, I probably wouldn't be here right now. At first, I thought someone was standing outside my house, at the edge of the woods, just watching me. But a few days later, I realized something that still messes with me to this day. The thing I was seeing outside was never actually outside. Wait a second. Are you subscribed yet? If not, do it right now, because in a few minutes, this story is going somewhere you won't be able to come back from. This happened last year. I had just moved into a new place, living on my own for the first time. It was quiet, a little too quiet. The house sat just outside the city, with a big backyard that stretched into a dense patch of woods. During the day, it felt peaceful, but at night, the silence felt heavy, unnatural. The first few days were normal, but one night, I suddenly had this feeling, like someone was out there, watching me. You know that feeling you can't explain? Yeah, that. I slowly turned my head toward the window, and that's when I saw it. A figure,
standing right at the edge of the woods. It wasn't moving, not even a little, just standing there, facing my house. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a shadow, maybe my mind playing tricks on me. But I couldn't look away, because deep down, I knew it wasn't just a shadow. I turned off the lights, looked back again. It was gone. And that should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The next night, I sat in the dark on purpose, waiting, because I needed to know if I had imagined it. I didn't. It was there again, same spot, but this time, it was closer. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone and checked the security camera. The backyard feed was clear, empty, no one there. But when I looked back outside, it was still standing there. That's when I realized something was off. It wasn't staying in the same place. It was getting closer.
That night, I couldn't sleep. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the window. Then I heard it, a soft sound. Tap, tap, tap on the glass. My throat went dry, because this time it wasn't at the edge of the woods. It was right outside my window, so close I could see the glass fog slightly from its breath. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. It slowly raised its hand and pressed it against the glass, right where my hand was. And then it whispered, "You've been watching me from the inside." My mind went blank, because I was inside. So how did it know exactly where I was standing? I shut my eyes for just a second, just 1 second. When I opened them again, there was nothing outside. I thought it was over, but then I heard something behind me. Slowly, I turned around, and in the darkness of my living room, there it was, standing perfectly still, the same figure, the one I had been seeing outside this whole time. It tilted its head slightly and said, "Now you're in the right place." I didn't wait. I ran out the front door, didn't look back. The next morning, I came back with someone else. Everything looked normal. Nothing was out of place, except for one thing. There were handprints on the window, from the outside and from the inside. I moved out that same day, and to this day, I still don't know what that thing was. But I know one thing for sure. I wasn't imagining it, because when it spoke the last time, its voice wasn't coming from outside. It was right next to me.